All right, we are live on all platforms. Hello everyone and welcome to Utechpia. I just want to make a quick video to, well, I'm not sure how quick it is, but this video is to show you guys that this item right here, the Arctic Liquid Freeze 2 360 cooler is back in stock. If you've been building a computer and you are trying to find some parts for your computer, you'll realize that almost everything is out of stock, or if it's in stock, it goes out of stock really quick, or sometimes if it's in stock, it's priced really high because people are price gouging like crazy. But this cooler has been on my watch list for a very long time, and it's finally in stock right now on Amazon, and you can pick it up right now. Yes, and we got a comment from Chindia. Hello, and Cynthia said, hi, hello Cynthia, and welcome to the live stream. Make sure you like this video and follow us on Utechpia. So today we're talking about different types of coolers for your computer. With the modern day and age, you can get a really, well, okay, let's take one step back. Basically, when you're building a computer, you need a motherboard, a CPU, a power supply, some RAM, hard drive, and a computer case, and a graphics card, and that's your computer. Now, a lot of CPUs that you use will come with a cooler, and usually the cooler is okay, it's adequate, it works, but it's noisy and it doesn't cool as well as it should, and therefore it's noisy because as you use your computer and you're putting more workload on it, the CPU will get hotter, and the fan, because it's already inefficient, will run even higher and louder. So typically a performance computer, you want to have a better cooler. So there are basically two types of coolers you can get. Well, actually three, but for most consumers, it's two. You can either buy a tower cooler, something like this. This is the Noctua NHD15. This is a really good cooler. This cooler is about $100, and I highly recommend this one. In fact, if you look at a couple of our older videos, we just did Jeremy's build with this CPU cooler, and he absolutely loves it. Super quiet, super high performance, but it is just basically a fan. Other option is basically like the Arctic Freeze. This one we have here is an EVGA closed loop cooler. Basically, it is a water cooler, but it's closed loop, which means we don't have to worry about maintaining the water. Or here's a picture of it, if I can zoom in, yeah. Bad picture of it. Basically, it's the same product that we're seeing on the screen right now. This is what's called a closed loop cooler. And basically, it's called a closed loop cooler, or also known as AIO, all-in-one liquid cooler. So all it is it has a radiator attached to it. This is a radiator back here. And then you have 3 fans, or 2 fans, or 1 fan, depending on the size. And then you have a pump that's right at the end here, where this attaches to the CPU. And basically, as you can obviously imagine, your CPU gets hot, so water flows from one pipe to the radiator, and then the fans blow through the radiator and cools the water, and the water comes back through this other pipe to the CPU, and it keeps cycling. And that's how you cool your CPU, one way to cool your CPU. So this is an all-in-one liquid cooler. Now you can have a custom loop liquid cooler, which is very advanced and very expensive, and really it does have better performance, but the cost is just astronomical. It's totally not feasible. In fact, even this all-in-one or closed loop cooler, they're not as cost effective as something like this, which is just a fan cooler. But it does have the nice coolness look to it, well, where you have your CPU not cluttered with a huge fan, and also it's just really cool to have your CPU water cool. You can always tell people that have a water cooler, and if you get the good quality water cooler like this Arctic Freeze 2 360, it's actually very quiet. In fact, it almost makes the value proposition lean towards the all-in-one cooler versus something like this, the Noctua NHD15. So for me, I was a hardcore Noctua NHD15 fan. I really wanted to get this, but since they were out of stock, I decided, oh, let me see what else there is out there. And I know that a lot of AIO coolers they're not as cost effective, and they tend to be a little bit more noisy than this fan. But that's not true, especially for this Arctic Liquid Freeze. This particular one, this is the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2360. This one has been out of stock pretty much for a long time now. And the reason for it is because it's really well sought after. And it's sought after for a reason, because it's very high performance. It's also very quiet. The fans can go as low as 200 RPMs all the way up to 1800 RPMs, controlled by pulse width modulations, or PWM, so that you can have very low noise level when you don't need it, and it ramps up when you do need it. So I'm actually very interested to try it out, because basically I have access to this. This is right in front of me. This is going into Jeremy's computer. So we know that this is going to be a benchmark when we compare it to something like this, which we know based on reviews and based on people's testimony that it's a very good cooler. But I want to know if it, number one, cools better than this, which I'm 100% sure it's going to cool better than this. But number two, is it quieter than this? Because that's the biggest proposition. So now basically, if you're comparing a big high performance air cooler like this with a high performance all-in-one cooler like this, the two things to consider is basically this one is going to last, the air cooler is going to last a lot longer because there's less parts to be broken. It's just a fan. If it doesn't work, well, you replace the fan, and even the heat stack will still work fine. And also, there's nothing to worry about in terms of reliability. So it kind of goes the same thing. The reliability, because it's simple, it'll last a very long time, like a decade, and it also costs less. Even the best air cooler like this only costs about $100. Now, all-in-one cooler or closed-loop cooler like this one isn't as reliable. This one has 2-year warranty, I believe. Some of them have up to 5-year warranty, but they tend to be a little bit more problematic simply because there's more moving parts. Because if you look carefully, you can see there's 3 fans, so any of those 3 fans can not work. You also have a pump in the head here, so if that pump doesn't work, then you're pretty much in a really bad position, because then you're not going to flow water through your cooler, and you're not going to get your CPU cooled. Also, there's liquid inside, so you have to make sure that liquid is always full, which it probably is going to be full for a while because it's closed loop and there's no way for it to evaporate easily. But over time, maybe 5-7 years, there's potential of that liquid needing to be refilled. Also, we don't know about the permeability of liquid through the hose, or also the breakdown of the components inside this liquid cooler, because you know, when you have an air cooler like this, you're just blowing air through a fin, whereas this, you have liquid cycling through this head and back to the radiator. Now this head inside here has a bunch of really small thin fins, and that's because it increases the surface area for the water to cool the CPU. Now those fins, the problem is if you have a lot of liquid flowing through it all day, 24 hours a day for 365 days a year, and there's like tiny little particles in here like paint chips, or just the hose breaking down over years and years and years, those little particles might build up in this in all these tiny little fins right here at the cooling head, and that could cause blockage to your water supply to cool the CPU. So there's that to think of. Basically, reliability and cost is the two big factor, right? All-in-one coolers, basically they cool better, but they're not quite as reliable as air cooler, and they are more expensive. So reliability, performance, and cost, I should say. So let me sum it up again. So all-in-one cooler, water cooler, they cost more, they're not as reliable, and they, so they cost more and they're not as reliable, but they cool better. So that's the pro. Over here, these cost a little bit less. They last like a decade, but they're not as cool, or they're not as efficient as the all-in-one cooler. So this is finally in stock, and you guys can grab it right now from Amazon for $124 shipped. And if you have Prime, it'll get to you by Wednesday. So super fast shipping on that. Now I did some research on Google, just comparing these two. And one of the reasons why this cooler is so hard to find in stock is because Gamers Nexus, which is a very popular YouTube reviewer who reviews CPUs, computer cases, everything you use to build a computer pretty much, had said nothing but great things about the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2. And because of this, it's always been out of stock for the longest time, since like early April, and it's been very hard to get for anyone to get their hands on this, especially during the current health pandemic. But even then, even without that, it's just everyone wants this. This is the hottest water, or the hottest, the most sought after all-in-one liquid cooler right now. So you'll also notice that there's different sizes too. If you go on Amazon, there's the 360 size, the 280 size, the 240 size, and the 120 size. Mainly, you probably, obviously the best one is the 360 size, because it has the biggest radiator, it has 3 fans, and you're gonna get the maximum performance out of your all-in-one cooler with the 360 size. Now you have to keep in mind, how big is your computer case? Can your computer case fit a 360 millimeter radiator? If it can't, the second best is the 280, because the 280 is actually 2 140 fans. So if you look at the surface area, it's pretty close to a 360, because a 360 uses 3 120 fans. So 2 140 fans is pretty close to 3 120 fans. But if you go down to something a little bit smaller like the 240, then I would say at that point, it's almost on par with a cooler like the Noctua NHD 15. So if you're gonna go for the Liquid Freezer 240, I would say just get this. This is better. But at the value proposition of the Liquid Freezer 280, then you're gonna get better performance here with the liquid cooler than the best air cooler. And of course, if you're looking at the Liquid Freezer 2 360, which is what I'm talking about in this video because it's finally in stock, it's the one that everybody wants. And if you know you need a CPU cooler, this is the one to get, especially if you want an all-in-one cooler, because this one has better cooling performance than the Noctua NHD 15, which is the best air cooler. And supposedly, it's about as quiet. So that part I don't know, which is why I'm purchasing it, to make the comparison to see if it really is cooler. Quieter than this. I know it's going to perform better, but does it cool better than this? And the price difference isn't that much difference. That's $124 versus this is $100. So 25% difference, $25. Yeah, 25% difference. I would say it's moot to me. I know some people $25 would make it make or break point, but I think in terms of performance, cooling, performance computer parts, $25 isn't going to make or break the bank for most people. So I did some research and I wanted to see, well, is this cooler better than the NHD 15? So people talked about this. It's obviously a question that a lot of people have. And the majority of the people say usually if you're looking at the smaller cooler, then no, get the NHD 15 because it's more efficient, it's cheaper, and it's more reliable. The consensus is the 240 is just a little bit better than the NHD 15. And then of course, if you start looking at the 280 or the 360, which is the one that's in stock right now down the link below, then definitely the 360 cools better than the air cooler. Here's another thread, I think right here. Yeah, people started talking about the difference here. Here's a really good thread on overclocker. Right, so this person has the NHD 15 and they're wondering, well, if I want to get the 280 and I'm looking at the temperature difference, remember this is the 280, which is not as good as the 360 that's in the link down below, which is in stock on Amazon right now. So the NHD 15, this person was getting about 67.2 degrees up to 70 degree maximum on the CPU, basically on like the average at the die, right? Compare that to about 3 degrees less if they use the Liquid Freezer 280, and same thing at the maximum, about 2.5 degrees less if they use the Liquid Freezer 280. And obviously, if you use a Liquid Freezer 360, then it's going to be even cooler than that. So you're definitely going to get better performance than the NHD 15. So now my concern was noise. Is it going to be noisier than the HD 15? Because noise is a big factor for me because I'm doing live streams, I'm doing recording videos in my YouTube studio, in my studio here. So this is ideal so far when we test on Jeremy's computer because it's whisper quiet, and there's even 2 low noise fan adapter that you can use in this kit that makes it even more quieter. So it's I was starting to debate that. Oh, we got a comment on Amazon Live. Eduardo says, I just bought the Arctic Freezer 2. It's barely going to fit in my case. Crazy, crazy. Yes, make sure it fits in your case. If it does, it's the best cooler for your case because number 1, it looks really cool, right? And number 2, it's priced really well, $125. And it cools better than the best air cooler. It cools even better than the Noctua NHD15. So Eduardo, congratulations. I got one too. Mine's on order and I should be getting it next week as well. So you're gonna love your cooler. I'm gonna love my cooler. We make great choices and glad that you're able to pick it up. Now, just in case it doesn't work out, don't forget Amazon is so good with return policies that's why I have no worries about buying it from Amazon because I already have the NHD15, which I know and love, and I just want to compare it with the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360, and for whatever reason I don't like it as much as the Noctua, I can always return it and buy the Noctua. But I have a lot of faith that I'm gonna love the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2, just because of all the reviews, right? Even here, people are talking about it, and I think they did talk about the cooling, the quietness, right? So this person says, I had similar results going from my Deere D15 to the 280 Arctic Freezer 2 on my AMD 3800X. The temperatures are similar or slightly lower, but it has a side advantage of first achieving them with noticeably less noise. The Arctic goes to about 2% of max performance while at 50%, or 2 degrees of max performance while only at the Arctic goes to about 2 degrees of max performance while at 50%, while actually being nearly inaudible at idle, which surprised me to no end. I thought I wouldn't keep it because of the idle noise, since the main point of my build is silence, or effectively so at idle. So now my PC is near enough silent at idle and barely a bother at full load with fans that don't go over 700 RPM. Quite nice. The second advantage, it leaves a bit more breathing room to the GPU that got a couple of degrees lower due to not having the D15 on its back, generally making the airflow inside the case easier to manage and therefore cooler. This person also says, I don't quite like the idea of having a closed loop cooler on my system, but I have to admit, at least this one is pretty effective. Here's hoping it works for a longish time without issue. Yeah, that's very true. I also have doubts about getting a closed loop cooler on my system too, because again, you have liquid flowing through there, you have a pump, you have a couple of fans, and you have little tiny fins in your CPU area, so that there's potential problems, right? The pump can go bad, the fans can go bad, you might have clogs, the water might go down over time, but this is a small price to pay because honestly, if it lasts 4 or 5 years, most people are going to upgrade their computer by the time they upgrade their cooler. Now, with the NHD15, if you upgrade your computer and you're like cheap, you can actually use the old cooler from your old computer on your next computer build and just get the right bracket so it fits the motherboard. But you know, that's really pinching pennies. And you know, life is short. If you're gonna be saving that kind of money, then yeah, go buy this and save a little bit. But I think it's exciting to have an all-in-one cooler or closed loop cooler in your computer, right? It just looks so cool to have your CPU just cooled by this little pump there connected to a cooler, and then now you have space in your computer case to do other things, and then your case has better airflow, and if you have one of those nice glass, you can put some RGBs in your computer case and then just make it look amazing without a big, huge, super big cooler like this blocking it. And of course, this cooler doesn't look ugly, but it's just a different look because I've had big coolers like this for the last 15 years in all my computers. So maybe now is a good time to try a closed loop liquid cooler and see how I like it. So this reviewer definitely likes the cooler. Let's take a look at some of the reviews on Amazon themselves. So this is the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2. 360, and there's a lot of great things about this. Let's look at some of the specs here before we look at the reviews. So we got the newly developed PWM controlled pump. The Liquid Freezer 2 features a completely newly in-house developed PWM controlled pump with a copper base, improved efficiency at low power usage and quiet operation. They also have improved power efficiency. Unlike most pumps from our competitors, which runs at full load even when idle, their pumps, the Arctic Liquid Freezer pumps, clocks down, consuming less power and producing even less noise if no cooling is needed. Even with its additional fan for the additional fan for VRM cooling, that also spins down too. So this is one of the things that make the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 very different from all the other AIOs or CLCs in the market. And that's because the fans can spin down, the pump can spin down, and the VRM cooler, which is unique to this cooler alone, can also spin down. So I guess to be very specific, the pump can actually slow down when performance is not needed to cool the CPU, and that allows it to stay quieter. And then you have the motherboard VRM cooling. Now this is a unique feature to the Arctic Freezer 2, and that is basically there's a little tiny fan here right where it attaches to the CPU, you can see, and that helps cools the VRM, which are all the voltage regulator and all these other important motherboard components that usually get hot but don't get cool. When you have a cooler like this, an air cooler, you get kind of extra cooling from the fan that it kind of leaks the cool air from the fan to help cool your VRM. But when you have a liquid cooler, typically they don't have anything to cool these components around the CPU except this one, because this one has a fan here that will push out air and cool all these components. Now based on all the tests that people have done, it actually doesn't change the performance, but it's peace of mind knowing that you're gonna get better cooling for all your VRMs. So it's a bonus feature. It's not even a feature I care for, but it's a nice feature. So there's an additional 40mm fan next to the pump, helps cooling the motherboard VRM chips. This prevents overheating, especially when overclocking, and allows continuous heavy loads. And it says maintenance-free water loop. I would take that with a grain of salt. Technically, yes, it's maintenance-free, but how long does it stay maintenance-free? Is it 5 years? Is it 6 years, 7 years? I don't know, but after 5, 6 years, I might hesitate to use it much longer than that. So the water loop is sealed. Therefore, no water or additives have to be refilled. So that's great. I mean, that's the nice thing about having a closed loops cooler. You don't have to worry about leakage in your case, or worry about installing it and being an amateur and installing it wrong and having potentially water leaking through your computer and destroying your computer, right? So maintenance-free water loop, right? And here's the different size. You got the Liquid Freezer 2 360, which is the one I'm getting, and the one that's on sale right now, and the one that's in stock on Amazon, and I highly recommend it because check out the specs. You got the fluid dynamic bearing. You get the same. So these are the two that I would get, either the 360 or the 280 based on which one your case can fit. But since the 280 is out of stock and the 360 is better anyway, go for the 360. So basically you can see the difference on the fan speeds and the size, right? The weights. This is like the most massive of all because it's the biggest one. And Arctic has received a lot of awards, and also they've been known to make really quiet case fans for a long time. So they're probably using the same technology to make their fans for the radiator very efficient as well. So again, this one is relatively new to the market, which is why there's not a lot of reviews. But boy, oh boy, the reviews, like the one by Gamers Nexus, is just through the roof. They do a lot of tests. Like they test every all-in-one cooler in the market, and they're out there to say it's simply the best all-in-one cooler you can get, hands down. And when somebody like Gamers Nexus says that, it bears a huge weight. And that's why the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 is sold out for a long time now, and it's been really hard to get. In fact, it was so hard to get that we ordered the EVGA closed loop liquid CPU cooler, and I haven't opened it because this one took so long to come that by the time this got delivered, this one came and we ended up using this for Jeremy's computer. So because Jeremy's using this, I decided to get the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 for myself, and then now we have Jeremy's computer, which has the NHD15, and I'm going to use that to compare to the performance of the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360. It will be a great comparison. A lot of people have been asking for that comparison, like you saw in this thread here. People really wanted to know the difference, and even in this thread here, people were able to compare the 280, but no one has been able to compare the 360, because remember, the 280 isn't quite as high performance as the 360. So really excited for that. Totally excited for that. So let's look at some of the reviews on Amazon, because it is, oh yeah, also, does it come with thermal paste? Yes, it comes with thermal paste right on the pump itself, so where it connects to the CPU. Are the fans on the radiator user replaceable? Yep, you can replace the fans. And will there be a temperature difference on the CPU and in the case overall if used as an intake? And that's based on how you want to have it, as air flowing through the radiator. Okay, basically you have 3 fans that blow through the radiator. So whether you want the air to come from inside your case to blow through the radiator, which means the air is typically hotter, or you want the air to come from outside the case to blow into your radiator, which means the air coming in through the radiator is going to be cooler, but at the disadvantage of also now heating up the components inside your case. So optimally, you want air to come in as intake, but if you can't do that, then you can also use air from inside your computer to blow through out as well. So this person asks, does a 360mm fit the 011 dynamic when mounted on the side? Yes, it will. It supports the 360 radiator. And here's some pictures of people doing their install. You see how it's so nice to have just the CPU and the cooler. You don't have a huge fan covering all this. You have easy access to your memory slots. You have easy access to all your ports here, your motherboard headers, and you can also screw in the motherboard more efficiently. It's just nice to have a very clean looking computer with just the all-in-one cooling unit. And then of course you'll have to have the wire here to install your all-in-one cooler up here. This person says, I love it. I really like this all-in-one. I just hope it lasts. Yes, that's my concern too. Will it last? But you know, if it lasts 5-6 years, I'm happy. It's worth it. So this person says, cooling performance is great. Absolutely great. I'm running it on the Ryzen 3950X, which is what Jeremy and I have. So we're gonna have our cooler on the 3950X as well. And at stock setting, I can run at the super low speed, making it inaudible. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. That's perfect. Now I can pretty much feel confident that the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 is going to be very quiet, because I'm probably going to run it at stock speed too, my CPU. So I can put everything at the lowest speed and make it inaudible. Just like we're doing with the Noctua NHD15, just running it at the lowest speed possible and keeping it very quiet. And with the PBO on and pulling 180 watt, I'm still able to run this at about 50% speed, so it's still very quiet. My previous cooler was a Corsair H110i GT, and it was able to cool nearly as well as long as you crank the fan up to annoying loud levels. Wow, so this reviewer is comparing it to the Corsair H110i, and for that one had to really crank up the fans, whereas this one only had to crank up 50% of the fan. And the reviewer said what's worse is while you could turn the fans down, the pump was way too loud. Yes, that's a big difference between other AIOs and the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2, because the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 allows you to have your computer control the speed of the pump when it doesn't need the cooling performance. Just as it cools down, or as it slows down the fan, it also slows down the pump. That's a very unique proprietary feature to this AIO. So if you set, and this person says, if you set the fans on the 110i to the lowest speed, you couldn't hear the fan, but you can certainly hear the pump, which was a more irritating tone than the whole white noise of the fan. With Liquid Freezer 2, I have yet to hear the pump at all, though I'm sure I will end up disconnecting the fans at a later date just to see if I can hear the pump. Paranoid, just want to know how the pump sounds. Also there's some constructive criticism that this person would like to put out there. I feel the tubes are too long. I put mine at the top of my case and the tubes are just too long. Second, I would like to be able to control the fans and the pump separately. In theory, you can get an extension and run the fans separately. However, it would be nice if it came with one so you can do that out of the box or in a second fan connector near the pump to give you that option. Oh yes, Gamer Nexus also mentioned this, and yes, it would be nice if you care about those things, but if you care about simple installation, you just plug in the cooler and one connector plugs to your motherboard, and that connector controls both the pump and the fan speed. It works. I don't really have time to tinker with separating the two and controlling the pump speed separately from the fan speed. It's more than necessary, unless you're like super into tinkering with stuff like that. And you could be, and that's why Gamer Nexus says there's a few percentage of people that might want that, and for those people, you can do it. You just need a connector, a second extension cable to connect the fans to your motherboard PWM and connect the pump to your motherboard PWM so you can control them separately. And lastly, this person says it would be nice if they provided screws to do a second set of fans. No deal breaker here, just kind of nitpicky criticism if you ask me. Oh, I think this second set of fans is to have the push-pull configuration. You know, you have a radiator and you have the 3 fans that are already there, either to push air through it or pull air through the radiator, right? But you can also have, for example, 3 sets of fans in the front and also 3 sets of fans in the back. So for example, the ones in the front can be pushing air through the radiator and the fans in the back can be pulling air through the radiator. So you have extra force to blow the air in the same direction. That's very efficient. But of course, when you have 6 fans, you're generating more noise. So just keep that in mind. But that's cool that you can do it. It just, this person says, well, it would be nice if they included screws so that you could do that, but they don't. So also more to this review. For those like me that have a need for silence at times, this all-in-one is perfect. My computer, when it's in quiet time, fan curve is quieter than my old monitor's transformer, quieter than an LED light bulb. Though I did notice when I set the fan header, the AIO is on at certain RPMs, then there is some noise one might be interested in. It seems below 10% the pump is still running, but the fans do not turn reliably. 10% therefore is the bare minimum. So I guess when the fans aren't spinning, they will make some noise, I guess. I'm not quite sure. And at 15%, there's slightly audible clicking, if you will. I'm not sure if this is the fan or the pump noise, though I believe it's a pump. This noise is audible to about 25%, and then it seems to disappear at 30%. Likely just hidden by the tiny amount of fan noise becoming audible. None of these noises are likely to be noticed, but they're there. And this person again is very nitpicky because of course your computer has moving parts, it will make noise. And if you think about it, there's tons of other fans in your computer too that will accumulate the noise. So I wouldn't nitpicky too much because at that point it might not even make a difference, right? Wow, this person does have a really nice case. The fans look nice, the RGB RAM. Oh yeah, the other thing is the RGB RAM. When you have a huge cooler like this, basically it covers your RAM. So number one, you can't access it if you need to change it out. Also, if you buy nice RGB ones, it won't look nice. And if you have tall RGB ones, it makes the fan have to stick out a lot because you can move this fan up to accommodate larger RAM heights, but then a lot of smaller compute case won't fit. So this setup actually won't fit in a lot of cases, especially if you have tall RAM sticks. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So this is this person's case, and yeah, looks really, really nice. Very cool. Very nice. Love it, they said. Best all-in-one on the market, the 360 version. This person says, I've been eyeing this cooler for a long time now, and they're very hard to come by, but finally got to snag one from Hot Deals for Less, which was a seller on Amazon, but now they don't have any, or when they did have it, it was like $135, $139, but right now, $125 shipped from Amazon, so can't beat that. Best price I've seen, and it's in stock, and you should receive it early next week if you have Amazon Prime, like really early next week, like Tuesday, if you order it now. So the 360 version keeps my Ryzen 3600 running cool at around 49 to 50 Celsius. Oh, that's cool. When gaming, and should be good for the next Ryzen 4000 series, you definitely need the correct case to accommodate for this thick cooler radiator precisely. My NZXT Phantom 800 series case fit this nicely, but you can see in the pictures that the 8-pin CPU connector does touch a radiator. Not a big deal. Oh, it does? So where does his connector touch the radiator? 8-pin, I can't see where the 8-pin touch the radiator. Probably over here. Oh yeah, I think right here. There it is. I think this is the header. Yeah, the header for the motherboard. It does touch the radiator, but yeah, if you're able to snake it and make sure the wires are in a good arrangement, you'll be fine. You'll be totally fine. I do not think that you can control the individual fans with the one connector to the CPU fan header, but the cooler running at stock speed is super quiet, no complaints there. Cable management was super easy with only one cable to plug into the CPU fan header. If you can get your hands on one of these, I would highly recommend this all-in-one. Yes, definitely good review right there. Another one says best value for AIOs. Yeah, one of the things that make this one a best value for AIOs is it does miss one thing that some of you might want, and that's RGB. If you want RGBs on your all-in-one cooler, this one doesn't have it. That's why they're able to keep the cost down and have super good performance. For me, I'm more about the performance than the bling of the AIOs. RGBs, so that's why I decided to go with this. If you want RGBs in your AIO, this is not the solution for you, but you can also get nice RGBs from other components inside your computer case, like your RAM, you have extra fans, or you have RGB light strips. You don't actually have to have RGB on your AIO. Unless you absolutely have to have it, then in that case, don't get this one, because this one doesn't have RGB. So this other reviewer says, this whole line of AIOs is the best value you can get if you can manage to grab one right now, right? That's the thing, if you can get it. And this was the biggest thing for the longest time. This was July 27, 2020, which is just a few weeks ago. And it was out of stock everywhere. No one can get their hands on the Liquid Freezer 2 360. And finally, it's in stock right now. I just saw it just a few minutes ago. I made my order, I put it in. I'm making this video so that you guys can grab it too. In fact, I'm kind of nervous now. If I hit refresh here, is this still in stock? Because right now it says it's in stock, but sometimes while I'm making these videos, it gets sold out. Yep, it's still in stock. Sweet! Yes, so grab it guys before it's out of stock, and you buy it from Amazon, so just in case things don't work out, you can always return it. And oh yeah, and if you buy from this second one, you have to pay $10 shipping, whereas if you buy from this top listing, it's $125, including free shipping, whether you have Prime or not. If you don't have Prime, the free shipping will take a little bit longer, but it's still free. If you have Prime, it gets there much faster. So yeah, dude, definitely get this. It's in stock. I mean, people have been waiting for this for a long time, and this is your first time hearing about this, and it's in stock. You guys are in luck, for sure. So let's take a look at that review again here. So yeah, if you can manage to grab one, right? So I even managed to get this front mounted with tubes down in the front of a Latin Cool 2 mesh. That's one of the new Leon Lee cases. I like this case too. And using the EVGA GTX 1070 SC, now if your GPU is any longer than that configuration, it's not going to work. Oh yeah. So if you have a small case and you have this cooler in front of your case, just keep in mind that your GPU can't be very long, otherwise it's going to run into the radiator in the front of the case. So just keep that in mind. When you're installing a huge, very thick, very tall radiator like this Liquid Freezer 2 360, just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when you have a small case. So when the new gens of GPU comes out, I may have to flip it over. Yeah, this person might have to install the cooler somewhere else, maybe on the top or on the bottom, wherever they can fit in their case, but it would be difficult to get it to fit in a small case and have a very large GPU as well. So only problem currently is availability. Not right now, because it's available right now. You can order it, link down below, and get it before it's out of stock, guys. This thing doesn't come in stock very often, and because it's so popular and because there are reviewers like Gamer Nexus saying it's the best CPU cooler out there, you're gonna darn know for sure anyone is building a computer that wants a liquid cooler, it's gonna get this one. There's no other alternative that's as good. This is the top chart topper. So that's why it's always sold out. And right now it's in stock. So this person says the only problem currently is availability. I've watched for weeks before they finally came back in stock, only to have 4 left. By the time I quickly bought it, the listing was already sold out. Other PC sites had them in stock for about 30 minutes earlier today. They just can't keep them in stock. Yeah, it's sold out because people want this like crazy. Mine is dead quiet even with an overclock 10600K running Prime 95. Not sure what other people were saying about the VRM fan being loud. I'm sure if you contact Arctic, they can help figure it out. I even set fans to max just to see how loud everything would be, and everything was still silent, just barely audible. An absolute fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic in my book. Sweet! Yes, great, easy install, insane cooling. And again, 360 version, right? A lot of people are getting this 360 version because that's the ultimate version. So first off, this thing is awesome. I got the 360 version, pure performance product, looks great, cools excellent. I have this mounted in an intake configuration on a Crosshair 220T, and yes, it fits like a glove. I only have a couple of gripes. There were a couple of scuffs on the radiator. You can't see them unless you look, but in today's tempered glass side panel cases, some may not approve, and for my case, the tubes were way too long. You cannot position them easy like tubing with rotating joints. These are fixed to the block and radiator. That is unfortunate. So you can't like swivel them. So they are long, and you have to just route them the way they are. And I think it's gonna be fine for me because I'm gonna mount it on top of my case, and then I'm gonna mount the tubing, the far end from the CPU, so it routes down to the CPU that way. So I like the longer tubing for sure. That's for me. Also says these are only small gripes and have given the price to performance ratio. It's tough. Given the price to performance ratio, it's tough to complain about these small minor things, but I know there are some who may care. Beefy radiator looks awesome in my little case. The fans are very nice, and both pumps and fans are as silent as you're gonna get pretty much in any AIO stock configurations. Cold plate is lapped and shiny smooth. No other AIO no other AIO I have had was like this. And what this person's talking about is the surface that makes contact with your CPU. If you buy a cheap AIO or even a cheap air cooler, it's not so flat. There might be small pits in there, like small pits or unevenness that it makes heat transfer very difficult. That's why you have thermal paste between your CPU cooler and your CPU, but that thermal paste doesn't always make a perfect connection when it's kind of flawed to begin with. So this person is saying the cold plate is lapped and shiny smooth, much better than other AIOs that this person has used. And that's true because based on Gamer's Nexus review, he also said that this has very good level of quality surface lapping on the cold plate. And very consistent too. The variability is small, and also the amount of defects is small. So if this thing holds up, it's definitely worth it. Time will tell, but I'll be buying more if it doesn't work, it doesn't hold up. So as far as temp, I'm getting about 10% conservatively lower temps across the board versus my Noctua U12S, which is amazing. This is on a Ryzen 3800X. I am supposedly not buying Aztec design AIO coolers because I want to see what's out there. Tired of the same old shiny light coolers. Yeah, basically, if you guys don't know, Aztec is a manufacturer of all the pump designs for all the other AIOs out there. So regardless of brands, they're using the same pump. So the only thing really different is the size of the radiator and the fans. Whereas with the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2, they have their own proprietary pump. So really excited about it. And that's one of the reasons why you can control the pump speed when you don't need high performance pump, and because you have the little fan on your pump too, so to cool the VRMs. Cool, really cool stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of good reviews. I mean, we can spend all night reading all these reviews, but I think that gets the point. It's pretty much the best value, the best in its class. It's easy to install, insane cooling. This person says it only worked part-time. This is probably because they had let me see this real quick. This is the only negative one I've seen so far, so let me read this real quick. So I've gotten this for a new build, made the classic mistake of installing without testing first, and upon initial starting my computer, CPU temps were almost immediately shot up to over 90 degrees C. Ooh, not good. I noted that the fans had initially started spinning, but then stopped. After hours of diagnosing, even trying everything suggested by Arctic to resolve the issues, kudos to them. Their ticketing system is responsive, so that's good. I discovered that the main wire only fed reliable power to the unit if held in a very particular position. As such, since it wasn't a consumer repairable issue, I had to send back the unit. I was told a replacement unit couldn't be sent until mid-March. Again, availability was very difficult at the earliest, so I've gone ahead and purchased from another manufacturer. It's too bad. I've read good things about the cooling capabilities of this 3060mm unit and was quite hopeful. 3 stars as the manufacturer and Amazon have been responsive. I just appear to have received a bad unit. Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry that, Mark, you didn't receive a good unit and you missed out on a really cool cooler, but there goes life, right? So this person's terrific cooler beats my closed loop cooler 280, which is probably the EVGA, yeah, which is pretty much this one that I have here that I'm returning because I haven't installed it yet, and this one came late in the mail. So actually, I want to read this review too. I checked out reviews for the smaller units and they were fantastic, so I bought the 360. Glad I did. It replaced an EVGA CLC 280 that I've had for years. The CLC maxed out at almost 75 degrees C with Prime 95 running the small FFTS test. The Arctic maxed out at only 67. Wow, that's a pretty big difference. I ran tests for 45 minutes only, so I'm sure once the radiator had been saturated, it would have gone higher, but I just gamed, so no need to stress it so much. With games, the highest temperature has been 53 degrees Celsius so far. The AM4 installation is very straightforward, but a bit of a pain. Yes, there's a common pain point is that it requires like almost a third hand. One person to hold the plate behind, one person to hold the plate in front, and then one person to screw it in. So the trick is to have the back plate held on the motherboard and kind of tape it so hold it there, and then use your other 2 hands to put the pump down and screw it in. Or just have another person to help you out. You can use the back plate that came on the motherboard and just screw onto it through the mounting clips. They are a bit hard to get lined up. I had someone hold the back plate in place while I lined the screws. This is a terrific cooler, especially for the price. Yes, oh, and there's one comment. 45 minutes was plenty to saturate the radiator. It's not a very big system. You were probably there at about 25 to 30 minute mark. Sweet! Love Arctic products. This 360 all-in-one works great. Kept my 9900K cool and nice and cool. Insane cooling. Well, here's the con. First, mounting on the AM4 was a little difficult. When you take off the stock mounting hardware, the back plate falls away, making it difficult to hold the back plate in place and place the pump to line the screws. Yeah, so basically the easiest way to do this is on a table, so that you can put the cooling plate and the motherboard on top of it and just let it rest on the table, then just screw everything up. So yeah, if you're installing it in a case, then it's very difficult, but if you install it on your table, it's much easier. Also, they said The pros are it's quiet and offers an insane amount of cooling. My stock 3950X idles in the upper 20s and lower 30s and maxes out at 5560. Sweet! Yeah, look at that. And this person has modified the fans too, I believe, or maybe they have some covers on top. But I don't remember the red being here for the stock fans, but I could be wrong. Amazing temps, great performance, and yeah. Oh, pretty much we read all 11 reviews, right? So there's only one negative reviews, and that negative review was because the user got a bad unit, which they couldn't get a good one because the manufacturer didn't have them in stock. Otherwise, they would have sent them. So the that person just returned it. But other than that, this review has perfect 5-star ratings, guys. Amazing temps. Make sure your case supports this thick radiator as mine didn't. After getting a desperately needed new case and throwing it all together, the noise level and temps are amazing. I'm running 1.5 volt and won't go over ADC. Yes. Very cool. And last review here, great performance, very silent and great cooling at a great product, a great all-in-one for a great price. No fancy RGB, but does cool the 99Ks at 30 degrees room temperature. Oh, missing hardware, couldn't use. Well, if it comes to missing hardware, that's probably a one-off situation. Make sure you contact your manufacturer for that. Best cooler for the price. This person owns the 280 version of the cooler. It's perfect thermals and overclocks my 3950X. I'm getting 81 degrees Celsius at 4.3 gigahertz and about 92 degrees Celsius. Ooh, but overclocked at 4.4 gigahertz on Cinebench. R20 ambient is about 30 degrees C in tropical weather with no AC. At stock speed, getting 70 degree max. Pretty sweet. Quiet in capital letters. I have the 240 size and it runs my 3900X at 34 degrees silently at 4.2 gigahertz overclocked. Pound for pound, the best cooler for the money. Did I mention this thing is quiet? Yes. Yeah, so we actually read all 11 reviews, believe it or not, and only 2 bad reviews, right? The one about the missing hardware, which is probably one-off case, and the other person just had a bad unit that it wasn't working properly. So yeah, really, really good cooler. It's in stock, $125, shipped from Amazon. It's in stock, literally, it's in stock, and if you have Prime, you'll get it early next week. So get it, guys. Order it. You'll be very, very happy with this. Hey, look, and we're live right now talking about this product. And yes, you can see we can talk about other products too. We can look at the Noctua NHD15, which I purchased for Jeremy. This one right here, which is already installed and running great. And it's not even in stock until August 14th. So even if I wanted to get another one of these, I can't get it right now, which is what made me want to look into the Arctic liquid cooler. And I'm so glad that I looked into this one because I much rather have this one than another Noctua NHD15, just to see how much better this cooling performance is, because this one definitely cools better than the Noctua NHD15. My only concern is it noisier? And it probably is, probably isn't, not sure. That's what we're gonna find out. And of course, reliability isn't as good as a Noctua because I've had a Noctua NHD14, which is over 10 years now, still running in my old computer, the i7-2600K, just perfectly fine. So that's one thing that this new all-in-one liquid freezer 2 probably won't have, is that it won't last a decade. It'll probably last half a decade, maybe. We'll see. And then of course you can look at other coolers too. You can look at like the brown version of the NHD15, which is actually in stock. So if you want to, you can get the brown version. But also really good performance. Again, if you want to have a reliable cooler that you don't have to worry about for a very long time, the Noctua NHD15 is really good. I highly recommend it. It's only if you want to try out all-in-one coolers or have some liquid cooler because it's exciting and it looks better in your case, then go for the all-in-one cooler. But if for pound per pound, for best value, the air cooler has the best value and best reliability too. Value and reliability. Only the performance isn't as good as the all-in-one coolers, but again, if you're running your CPU at stock settings, you don't really need more performance than the Noctua NHD15 can provide anyway. So if you want to try something else, you can try the Assassin 3, which is normally like $89, but because they're low in stock, that's why it's $129. So I wouldn't get this one unless you absolutely couldn't get these two. Another option is the Dark Rock Pro, which is also a very good cooler. Again, it falls to the same line as the Noctua NHD 15, an air-based cooler. Very beefy, high-performance one, which means better price than an all-in-one cooler, better reliability than an all-in-one cooler, but at the cost of something very big and bulky, and at the cost that it doesn't cool as well as an all-in-one, as well as the top-of-the-line all-in-one cooler, like the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2. If you buy a cheap all-in-one cooler, ooh, don't do that, because they're not as reliable, and definitely they're gonna be noisy and it might not be as efficient. Another thing to talk about, since we're on the topic, is the MSI X570 Tomahawk board is back in stock. This one was out of stock for a long time, and we've purchased two of these. And in fact, if you click right now, look at the new and used, you can buy it directly from Amazon for only $220 and get it delivered on August 25th. This is pretty good. Pretty rare to have this opportunity. Jeremy and I, we picked up two of these motherboards to use for our 3950 CPU streaming machine build. Absolutely love them. These boards are super reliable, super high quality. They have a 2.5 gigahertz LAN, and they have the best VRM performance of any motherboard in this price range. And it comes with everything we need: two M.2 slots, fourth gen M.2 slots here. As long as you're running a 3rd gen Ryzen CPU, you'll benefit from a 4th gen M.2 SATA drive, two of them here. And it's just a beautiful looking board, and there's also a chipset cooler here that actually doesn't even spin when it doesn't need to. So super quiet performance on this motherboard. Oh, I should also be hovering over and highlighting it down below in the carousel so you can see this motherboard is still available from Amazon for $220. Really good deal for quite possibly the best X570 motherboard you can buy right now, and it's in stock. So take a look at that. So let's see what we have here as well. Let me know if you have any questions too, because I would love to answer questions. I'm going to kind of wrap this up in the next few minutes, but oh, I should talk about the other case, the case that I'm going to put all this in. I'm so excited about this case. This is the Lian Li 001 Dynamic XL. I actually got the white one, not sure if it's still in stock. Yeah, I ordered it. Yeah, you can still get it. It's in stock. So the white one is in stock, and I think it just looks amazing. This case looks so good. And I got the XL because the cool thing about the XL is if I wanted to, I can actually run a Noctua NHD 15 cooler in there. It's just that it's not optimal for airflow, because normally for a case that's designed for airflow, you usually have fans in the front that pulls in air, and then a fan in the back that pushes out air. So a normal straight airflow is how most computer cases are efficient. This one, you could probably have a straight airflow from bottom to top. Air comes in the bottom, blows out the top, or you have a room on the side here for fans, but ideally this is a case designed for liquid cooling. So that's why it has this cool aquarium glass look, right? You can see in the front of the case and the side case, and it's designed to have an all-in-one cooler. For me, I think I'm going to install my 360 Arctic Freezer 2 up here and have the wires come around here to cool my CPU that way. And that way I can push air out of the case. I mean, ideally pulling air in would be the most efficient, but pushing air out would be nice because, again, the airflow would be air coming from the bottom, pushing up, and then air coming in from the side here, pushing into the case, and then so I have exhaust up here and exhaust out through the back. So it's going to be a really nice airflow for my case. Lots of quiet fans, very nice performance. I'm looking forward to this case a lot. And yeah, this is a super premium case, guys. You don't need to get this type of premium case, but I splurged because I haven't upgraded my computer in nearly 10 years. So I'm going to get the coolest case I can afford. And this case is no cheap case. This is a $200 case, but it is pretty much a cream of the crop case. The best one you can really get in terms of looks, in terms of fit and finish, in terms of all the features inside. When you buy a nice high-end case, what you get is really good design. Everything is easy to access. All the edges are smooth, so you won't cut yourself as you're going through it. There's rubber grommets around and ways to hide your components. Like for example, this one, you can't even see the power supply. Where's the power supply? And that's because there's 2 chambers and the power supply hides in the back of the case. See? And it still allows you to install your motherboard in front and you don't see the power supply. And because of that, it doesn't have a super high height between the motherboard and the glass here. So the distance between the glass and the motherboard is not very high. So when you install something like this, the NHD15 cooler, you probably want to make sure you get low profile RAM, like 31mm high, no more than 32mm high RAM. Otherwise, you'll have to put this CPU fan a little bit higher, and if you do that, you won't be able to fit it inside a case like this. Just FYI. But that's the case I'm using, and I'm gonna put the Arctic freezer, the Arctic liquid freezer 2 360 in there. I'm super excited about that. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I mean, there's other all-in-one coolers that you can look at. This one is pretty cool too, but this one costs a lot more, and this one uses the Aztec cooler pump technology that a lot of every other cooler uses. So it's kind of not as good because it's a little bit noisier, and you don't get to lower the speed of the pump. Whereas the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2, it has the patented technology where you can lower the speed of the pump with pulse width modulation. So that's the cool part. But with other coolers like this one, this is probably the second best cooler out there, the Kraken X73, because it has very good performance. Also, it has a really cool display on the pump. I like the display, but it's very expensive, and I think the Z is even more expensive, right? Yeah, the Z is a crazy one. The Z is the one that you can actually have a screen here, so you can even display like your own text or whatnot. So that's really cool. I actually haven't used this myself, but it's just too pricey for me. I wouldn't get this unless you absolutely want to have the look here. But in terms of performance, the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 just blows this one out of the water. It's more quiet, better performance. It just doesn't have the fancy bling of the pump display. That is all. Then the last one here, this one is also pretty cool too. This one is like even crazier one. You have really nice RGBs on the fans, and you have a nice display on your pump. And this one looks fantastic. But also very pricey, so just keep that in mind. And also probably not as quiet because again it uses the Aztec pump design that all the all-in-one coolers use except the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2, and those pumps are typically a little bit louder, and you can't change the pump speed when you are at idle, and you don't need a lot of performance. So that's the downer. Just imagine the pump is always running at full speed, so it's just gonna make more noise. Just keep that in mind. And then of course this last thing is a CPU. This is a CPU that myself and Jeremy got. We're building 2 computers using the Ryzen 3950X. This is quite possibly the best consumer CPU you can get because it runs games like butter and it runs applications like butter. It's got 16 core, 32 thread, guys. It's a mini Threadripper, and if you know what Threadrippers are, it's their workstation line of AMD CPUs, and they cost a lot of money. And this one costs quite a bit less, and you can fit this in a motherboard that's designed for all the Ryzen 9, 7, 5, and 3 CPU as well. So basically, you have access to consumer motherboards and be able to run the highest end chip on the consumer motherboard that pretty much has almost Threadripper-like performance. You're losing out on a couple of the features like the dual quad memory lane and some of the PCIe bandwidth, but unless you really know that you need them, and if you don't know you need them or not, you probably don't need them. And for gaming wise, even this CPU is already an overkill for gaming. For gaming, you're probably good with like a Ryzen 7 or even a top of line Ryzen 5, but if you get a Ryzen 9, that means you're serious about gaming, but you're also serious about productivity work, whether it's streaming, online content, or whether you're doing graphics rendering or web development. This Ryzen 9 3950 with 16 core, 32 threads, crazy. Just remember, it doesn't come with a cooler, and hence that's why I was looking for a cooler for it. And of course, the cooler that I recommend is no other than the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360. I said that all wrong. The one I recommend is no other than the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360. And that is a wrap, guys. This is in stock. Get it now before it's out of stock. You will not regret it. And in case you don't like it, always return it. And if you don't like it, you return it, and get this, because I'm sure you're gonna love this. But if you end up getting the Liquid Freezer 2 360, you'll probably like that more. I can't tell exactly what you'll like because everyone has different needs and they have different expectations and they have different noise sensitivity. But I think this one will definitely perform better than any air cooler out there, but it's going to be just as quiet as even the Noctua NHD15. Quote, that is to be tested. I don't know for sure, but it should be very quiet because you can change the pump speed and the fan speed and adjust accordingly to the load. So it should be pretty darn good. Again, with all-in-one liquid coolers, you are sacrificing reliability. It's not going to be as reliable as a really good air cooler like the Noctua NHD15, simply because you have so many moving parts. This one, you have 3 fans, you have a pump, and even this small little BRM fan. So more parts that can spin means more parts that can break, and also the fluid is running through the system like crazy. And if you have fluid running through the system, there's lots of little fins underneath this thing here. Basically, those fins are to help transfer the heat between the CPU to the liquid. And if there's small little tiny particles through your fluid that builds up over time, it might clog your pump, your liquid flow, and that would be really bad. So there's actually 5 moving parts, right? The 3 fans on the radiator, the fan on the VRM right here, and then the pump, and also the liquid inside your system. So just keep all that in mind. So it comes with a bunch of screws, brackets, and your CPU mounts, and just the unit itself. Really cool looking. Arctic Freezer 2 360. It's been so hard to find this in stock. I'm so happy I found it in stock. And I hope that if you're watching, you can get your hands on one of these too. Let me know in the comments below if you're grabbing one, and let me know if you have any questions. But with that, I'd like to wrap it up and say thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hover over the screen on Amazon Live and click follow. I think, well, maybe right here. Follow me and follow this channel, Utechpia, and we'll also have Jeremy online for a lot of the videos, and we would love to talk to you about all things tech, as well as photography and editing and all the good stuff. So follow us there, and also hit the star, or I don't know where side's on, hit the star so that we can get this video promoted and more people can see it. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you like the video and follow us on YouTube as well. We're on Twitch TV at twitch.tv/Utechpia. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Again, stay healthy, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you next time. Have a great night. See you later. Bye. Signing out. All right. Good night. Bye. See ya.